Good morning, it is mid-July. It is an absolutely beautiful day here in New Jersey, and I thought it'd be fun to show you around the garden. I want to give you some updates on how my plants are doing. I want to maybe do a little bit of harvesting, and then I had a really fun idea for something we can actually do with some of the harvests, because I think we have some potential for dye up here. I also thrifted this beautiful little basket this weekend. I think it is the most darling thing ever, and I'm just excited to fill it up with some stuff, so let's do it. So I'm not going to go into like absolutely crazy depth about every single one of my plants just because I just did that in my garden introduction video for the season. So if you want to check that video out, I'll link it below. But what I am going to do in this video is just kind of show you the highlights, the things that have changed, the major updates, and then some things that are ready to be harvested that I'm really excited about. So let's just start with the most obvious one. This is my pineapple mint plant. It has definitely grown quite a lot since it started heating up, and I just want to harvest some of this beautiful mint so I can dry it and make some tea. So what I'm going to do is just chop off some of these tendrils. There we go. Okay, I feel bad because I know I just chopped off quite a lot of the plant, but I'm hoping that all these new leaves now have a chance to like grow and thrive and flourish, and I'll have many more mint harvests in the future. Next door over here in my green stock, I have in these first two tiers some strawberries and some radishes, and both of them have been doing really well. I just wanted to show you these beautiful baby strawberries that have started to form and some beautiful flowers. And then here the radishes are starting to get nice and leafy. So yeah, we have quite a lot of growth and life happening here. We have some more future strawberries, lots of foliage, lots of green, lots of abundance, and I'm so happy to see that. This is my first year with this green stock, so I'm just like really excited to see how well everything's doing. It's definitely making me want to get a couple more of these. Oh, and let me show you the indigo down there. Putting indigo in a green stock was like one of my big experiments of the season, and I'm happy to say that it seems really happy in here, and I also think it looks beautiful. All this leafy green foliage. I'm excited because in this like really tiny space, I managed to fit 6 indigo plants, which is definitely enough to produce a pretty substantial amount of indigo dye. So I'm gonna let these keep growing, and then when it's time to harvest the leaves and start processing the dye, I'm of course gonna update you on all of that. This is my husky cherry tomato plant, and it has just been producing tomatoes like crazy, and I actually think a couple of them are red and ready to harvest. I see one kind of in the middle here. Ta-da! Okay, so this is probably the bed where we're gonna have the biggest and most exciting updates. As you can see, my gourds have been very excitedly climbing this big trellis. They are definitely taller than I am now, and I'm trying to train them to go like up and over. They've been producing these big beautiful leaves, they've been producing their flowers, and I've been coming up here at night with like a little paintbrush to try to pollinate as many of the gourds as I can because their flowers only open up at night. They make these really beautiful white flowers that kind of like reflect the moonlight. So that's been a fun little like mission of mine, like to come up every night to check for the flowers, to do my little pollinating. And I've actually had some results. I have some baby gourds on this plant. There's one big one right here. I'll bring you in closer. And then a couple other little ones that look like they might be getting started. Oh, look at that. It's a baby gourd. Look how cute it is. So on that side of the trellis, that's a wren house gourd. On this side closest to me, this is a miniature bottle gourd. I'm sure I'm getting some cross-pollination and some weird funky things happening, but I think that ultimately my goal is to just like have some gourds. I don't really care exactly what they look like or exactly what specific variety they are. I just want some hard-shelled gourds that I can cure and craft with at the end of their growing season. And so far, I think that might actually happen. I kept saying that even if I just get like literally one gourd, I'm gonna be the happiest person ever. And so far, I have a couple, and I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping for the best that they actually like succeed and see their lives through. Okay, now we're getting to the fun part, which is the fact that the bottom of this bed, so up here are the gourds, down here, these plants are actually ready to harvest. Down here I sowed beets, turnips, and carrots, and so far I think the only things that have been growing in here are the turnips and the carrots, and oh my gosh, have they been growing. These guys look absolutely huge, and I'm just like dying to pull them out of the ground, so let's do it together. Oh my gosh, that is just the most joyful thing ever, to pull this out of the ground. Yeah, we got a turnip. Let's pull the rest of these out. This is my first time ever in my life growing plants like this, and watching these guys grow and get bigger and bigger under here has just been so cool. Yeah, let's get this guy next. He already looks like he's partially out of the ground. Oh, you guys, gardening is magic. Okay, I think this one is gonna be my first carrot of the group. Let's see how it turned out. Oh my gosh, it's huge! That's so exciting. Wow. Ugh, that's a big one. Okay, I saved the biggest turnip for last, so let's pull it together. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Whoa. Oh, this is just so cool. I don't even have any room for my carrots anymore. Okay, let's harvest these carrots. And these are actually the material that I want to use as a dye stuff later on. Not the carrots themselves, but the carrot tops. Every part of this plant is precious to me. So let's harvest, and then we'll talk about dyes later on. Oh, just a little guy. Oh, we got a big bunch here. Let's see. Ugh. Oh no, I broke a carrot. Dig for that one really quick. Oh, it's really jammed in there. Okay, I'll pick the ones around it and then. Ooh, that's a big one. You guys, look at this just absolutely joyful handful of bright orange carrots. I just like literally can't believe that I grew these myself. Like I said, this is my first time ever trying to grow a vegetable, and to have such an amazing handful from a first attempt, I'm just like genuinely so proud. I'm definitely not trying to toot my own horn or anything. I'm just like overjoyed by gardening as a whole, as a concept. So yes, these are not only gonna be a delightful snack and a delightful meal, we're also gonna play with dyeing with these carrot tops. That'll happen in just a couple minutes though, so let's harvest a few more things and then we'll head down to the kitchen. Delightful. That'll do. Also, this space right here is now totally empty and totally available, so what should I plant? Okay, I just have a couple more things that I want to show you before we head inside, and one of those things is my Hawaii marigolds. These are flowering and they are so beautiful, and I'm so in love with this orange color. So I'm growing these as dye flowers, so I do have to harvest them, which truthfully does make me a little bit sad because they are so beautiful and they're so colorful and they just bring so much joy to this space. But I have to remember what I'm growing them for. I'm growing them for dye, so I need to harvest them and I need to dry them, and it'll pay off in the end, even if it feels a little bit sad right now. So yeah, let's snip some of these flowers. Oh, they're so pretty. I feel so bad. also back here, I have the newest addition to my rooftop, and that is a loofah gourd that was gifted to me by one of my friends. I'm starting to think that this green trellis is maybe not enough for it. It is absolutely climbing and crawling like crazy. So we'll see what happens here. It's creating these big, beautiful leaves and all these beautiful vines. I haven't seen any flowers yet, but I'm staying hopeful that they're coming soon. So yeah, hopefully I'll get some loofahs in the future. Just a quick update on this big bed. This is where I have my cotton plants and all of my soon-to-be dye flowers. The cottons are doing so well. They definitely scared me a bit in the month of June because they were just not doing anything. They weren't growing, they weren't showing any signs of life. Their leaves were just like crisping up in the heat and they just looked really sad and miserable. But the second July rolled around and the sun has been out like way more strongly and more consistently, they are growing like crazy now. I'm even seeing the start of the cotton flowers, which are these beautiful little green leafy structures called squares, I believe. They're starting to pop up everywhere and that just makes me so happy because that means I'm gonna get cotton. And then here in front, this is where I chaos sowed a whole bunch of dye flower seeds. I have tons of different kinds of coreopsis and dyers, chamomile, and I'm slowly seeing some flower buds form, but nothing has actually like opened up yet. So I don't really know what this is gonna look like. But yeah, hopefully this will be even bigger and more abundant the next time you see it. The last thing I'm gonna update you on today are my weld plants, which as you can see are both doing really well, but also a little bit crispy at the same time. They're growing, they have so many beautiful leaves and they're these big, beautiful rosettes on the beds, which is exactly what they're supposed to be at this stage right now. Year 1 of their growth is just kind of doing this, and then year 2 is when they really take off and they create big, beautiful stalks that are for the dye. So I'm happy with this right now, but they are looking a little crispy, and that's just because we had a really big heat wave and they definitely suffered from that. But all the leaves in the center, all the new growth is looking good, so I'm holding on hope that these guys are gonna be fantastic. I'm so excited for yellow dye. This is definitely way more of a harvest than I thought I could ever really achieve on this rooftop, so I am just like absolutely overjoyed. We got carrots, we got turnips, we got mint, tomatoes, and marigolds, and there's still so much more growing up here that I'm gonna continue to come up here and grab during the year. But for now, let's take all this downstairs and figure out what we're gonna do with it. Alrighty, so I washed all of my carrots and I got as much of the dirt off of them and out of them as I possibly could for now, and I'm just gonna let them rest for a moment while I tell you about this project that I'm really excited about. So you guys know that I've been really excited about my garden and really excited about the prospect of exploring natural dyes that I can grow myself. So I thought it'd be really fun to start an official dye journal, something that I can use to document and record all of my dyeing adventures, specifically relating to like natural dyes and especially things that I'm growing myself. So I decided to do a little bit of fabric shopping and I got 1 yard of basically every single fiber type that I like to work with. I tried to get like a broad range of, I guess, not only things I like to work with, but also what are just considered kind of like the normal standard fiber types that exist out in the world. I have cotton, just like general quilting Kona cotton. I have linen, 100% linen, which I really love to sew things to wear out of. I have a viscose rayon, which is a fabric that I really like to wear. Like whenever I find clothes in this material, I'm really excited about it. So I thought this could be a cool sample to include. I have some silk habitai, which is 100% really fine silk, the kind of material that you'd find in like nice silk scarves. Silk takes dye beautifully and I love to work with silk, so that's gonna be a fun one. I then have some slubby silk noil. So this is like slightly more textured, slightly more organic silk. It would be a fun comparison to that like really smooth silk habitai. Then I have a wool silk blend, which is one of my all-time favorite fiber types to work with. Like whenever I'm weaving, if I ever find wool and silk blended fibers out in the wild, I basically always gravitate to those. So I not only got wool silk blend as a fabric, but I also got a pack of some mini skeins of wool silk fiber, just so I have it in both fabric and yarn form. Then I have some really fine 100% wool fabric. This stuff is really nice and gauzy and lightweight, and it isn't a material that I normally work with, but I thought it could be a fun wool representative. And then for another wool representative, I got 100% wool felt. So this is not the crafting felt that you find in the store that's labeled as felt, but it's actually acrylic. This is actually 100% wool felt. And it's actually a scrap left over from when I made my wedding bouquet. So this is my gigantic stack of white fibers, and I'm gonna make a more in-depth video where I kind of introduce you to the idea of this dye journal, but I was just really excited about these carrot tops. I just kind of wanted to like give it a go and just try out this system that I'm creating now just for the fun of it. So we're gonna start by first cutting little pieces out of every single one of these fabrics. We're gonna mordant these in alum just to get them ready to accept the dyes. We're gonna prepare the carrot top dye bath, and we're gonna see what colors we can make. Let's do it. After cutting out swatches from each and every one of my fabrics, I weighed them to figure out just how much I was working with. So in my research, I found that people were generally saying that the more carrot tops you use, the better. There isn't really like a standard unit of how much dye stuff to how much material. I have 60 grams about of dye stuff, so I think I'm just gonna do 180 grams of carrot tops and just do like 300% the weight of the fiber. I'm really trying not to like overthink this whole dye journal thing. If I start standardizing things a little too much, I'm gonna take the joy out of the project for me. We're trying to be scientific, but not like too scientific to the point where it completely just kills the joy. You know what I mean? So I'm just going with 300 because I feel like it. Trying to use up all the kind of smaller, less attractive ones first, because then I can use the big, nice ones for photos. Okay, we're at 185, so I should be good. And these beautiful carrots will be a part of my dinner. I then filled up my big stainless steel dye pot with some tap water and added in all of the carrot tops. This is just a reminder to always use pots, utensils, and containers that are designated for dye, even if you're dyeing with edible foods like carrot tops, just to be super safe. I just don't want any mordant chemicals, fibers, or anything else that's potentially inedible to end up in my meals. So this is definitely not a dye that I want to boil, so I'm gonna put a thermometer and just kind of make sure that we're not overcooking this thing. Let's not go past like 180-ish, and we'll see how that does. Next, I prepared my mordant bath. I first weighed out some alum at 15% the weight of my fiber. I then dissolved the alum in some water and added it to an even larger container of water. Then I submerged all of the materials that I planned to dye, and I left them to soak for 24 hours. Meanwhile, my carrot tops were simmering gently on the stovetop. After about 3 hours of being on the heat, I turned the heat off and I left this whole dye bath to cool overnight, just to get as much of the color out of these carrot tops as I possibly could. The next morning, while everything was nice and cool, I strained all of the carrot top bits and pieces from the dye bath, leaving me with this beautiful amber color. I then added in all of my white materials. This included all of those fabric swatches that you saw me prepare earlier, plus a few extra things that I found in my yarn stash because I just couldn't help myself. I ended up adding these to the alum bath the night before so they'd be nice and mordanted and ready to take the dyes too. I turned the heat back on and I gently simmered these fibers in the dye bath for another 3 hours. And in that short time, they really soaked up a lot of the color. I then turned off the heat and I left this whole dye bath on the stovetop to cool overnight. The next morning, when all of the samples were cooled and colored, I removed the fabric swatches and cut off a nice chunk of each of them. And my plan was to see what kind of an effect an iron modifier would have on this carrot top dye. Iron has been used as a natural dye modifier for literally thousands of years. Historically, it was obtained from rusty nails, iron pots, iron flakes from blacksmithing, and more. Instead of acting as an actual dye itself, iron forms complexes with natural dye molecules, and it shifts their colors to deeper and duller shades. And this is really cool because it actually expands the range of colors that can be obtained from a single plant. So I thought that this historical practice would be a really fun thing to include in my dye study. For my iron, I'm using ferrous sulfate, a purified iron salt from Dharma Trading Company, and I'm using it as a post-dye bath. So first, I dissolved the iron in water, and then I submerged my tiny carrot swatches. I mixed them around for about 5 minutes until the color was visibly deeper and darker. Alrighty, so the results are in. Let's see how the carrot top dye turned out. Okay, so here are the results for the plant-based fibers. We have cotton fabric, cotton yarns, rayon fabric, and linen fabric. These big squares are the ones that came straight out of the carrot top dye bath, and then these little ones are the ones that we modified with iron. And overall, I would probably say that these results are kind of unremarkable maybe. We kind of just like tinted them slightly beige. They have like a hint more color than they did before, but overall I wouldn't really say that I'm like super excited about these colors. The cotton pretty much looks like absolutely nothing happened to it. It, if anything, even just looks like a slightly dirtier cotton. Kind of same for the rayon. The linen did take the dye a little bit more. It's a little creamier. And then the iron mordants just kind of turned everything like slightly grayer. So yeah, overall, I would probably say that the carrot tops wouldn't be my first choice for dyeing on plant fibers, but this is still really interesting to test nonetheless. And here's the carrot top dye on all of my animal-based fibers, and I actually think these turned out so beautifully. So here in this section right here, these are all 100% wool materials. These down here are 100% silk. And then this little corner right here, these are the wool silk blends. Everything with wool in it, pretty much across the board, just took the dye a lot more deeply and richly. So we have this gorgeous yellow color that's like really coming through, and it's so pretty. For the silk fibers, it's definitely a little more muted. It's almost like a khaki color with like just a hint of that like kind of greeny yellow. It's still really beautiful, even if it's a little bit more subtle. And then I think the way that the iron modified the color on these materials is so interesting. So that's these little squares right here. It definitely turned everything deeper and greener, almost to like an olive green. And I also think that's absolutely gorgeous, especially this one right here that's on wool felt. It is such a pretty color. I don't know what happened here with this one. So this is the 100% wool fabric, and maybe it just like didn't come in contact with enough of the iron solution, or maybe this fabric just like reacts differently with iron. I don't know. It's definitely not as dark as the other ones, but I still think it turned out really pretty. I actually think all of these turned out really pretty. And here are how all my fabric swatches look together, which I'm actually so excited about. It's really cool just to see like the range of colors that just one really simple dye material can create across a whole bunch of different fibers. Would I dye like a whole sweater or like a very serious project with carrot tops? Probably not. And that's not necessarily a comment on these colors. I actually think some of these colors, especially this wool, turned out really, really gorgeous. But the thing is that my understanding about the carrot tops in particular is that they're not the most color fast and light fast dye stuff. Meaning that if I were to dye a whole sweater out of this, it would fade pretty quickly over time. Like this isn't like a really long lasting, like permanent dye like some other natural dyes are. This was definitely more just to see like what would happen, just kind of like a big what if test using these beautiful carrots that I grew myself and that I'm really, really proud of. I just think there's something really magical about the color that is hidden within a plant, especially such an ordinary plant like a carrot. Ordinary just in the sense that like you can go to the grocery store and buy as many carrots as you want, like literally right now, and most people wouldn't even think twice about them or whether or not they would produce a color. But look what it did! It's so pretty! Okay, so before we wrap up this video, I just want to show you one more thing. I took all of my favorite of the swatches that we made together and I turned them into the first official page of my dye journal. And I am so excited about how this turned out. So here we have a little bit of information about the specimen and the dye process. I pressed and preserved a carrot top leaf to display right here in the corner. I then have one column that is my plant fibers and one column that is my animal fibers. And then I also included those iron modified swatches. I'm just like really excited about the idea of continuing to collect pages like this for all the natural dyes that I encounter in my life. And my ultimate goal is to fill this big scrapbook here with literally all of those colors. I just thought that'd be a really fun way to not only document these experiences, but to also create kind of like a teaching tool and a resource that I can keep with me for my entire life. And I am gonna call this my color collection. I also plan on sharing an official write-up and some high quality photos of all of my swatches and this dye page over on my Patreon. So if you want to check that out, you'll have access to all of these carrot top themed documents as well as all the other documents I've put up in the past. And that's just a little something fun to thank you for supporting my creative practice. Anyway, that just about wraps up this video. Thank you so much for joining me on this big gardening and dyeing adventure. I know this video was kind of a little bit all over the place, but hopefully it was still fun to tag along. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of what I'm up to in the world of fiber and textiles, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!